All right, guys. Happy Wednesday, April 1st, April Fool's Day. I am Dr. Jason Bradley with Epic Functional Medicine, and this is Wellness Wednesdays with Dr. B. And today we have a very special guest, a very good friend of mine, Tiffany Reneker. I think that we've known each other since we were like 3 years old or something like that. I don't even know anymore. And we've kind of come in and out of each other's lives many times, and we're reconnected now at Epic. Tiffany is one of our, brilliant health coaches. She's got a background in nursing. I'll let her talk to you guys about herself a little bit too. But the real reason that not the only reason we have her on, boy, she could just be on to chat. I would just listen to Tiffany chat any week. The reason that we have her on today is that Tiffany also is the founder of, I'm going to get this right, Get.Back.Up, which is and I'll let you talk about it, but my take on it is that it's empowerment for women that have been through life crises, including divorce, helping with self-esteem and really helping women build from the ground up. As a man, I know Tiffany quite well, and I know her work very well. And I think that we can all benefit from this. So I hope that the men that are watching and joining in, get some benefit from this as well. But I'm just going to turn it right over to Tiffany. Tiffany, welcome, and thank you for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm so happy to do this today. So Dr. Bradley pretty much nailed it. I'm actually in the process now of rebranding a bit. So if you go to my Facebook group page, it does focus on divorce, but it really, really is for women. Men can benefit from it too, but it's targeted towards women that have had a knockdown in life, and who hasn't, right? Mine happened to be, the last blow was a very traumatic divorce. Short about that, I didn't want to get divorced. It was unexpected. And after 25 years, I had to figure out how to be on my own for the first time ever. I went right out of my parents' house in high school. I went to community college for nursing, and I commuted. So I was living with my ex-husband when I was 18, and now I'm 48. So never been alone, right? So that was a big shocker too. It really is about getting back up. And I'm going to tell you why I chose that title, okay? When my husband unexpectedly left, I found myself, for the first time with all of the weight of taking care of our daughter, finances, who am I? Who am I? It was like taking not just my arm, but it felt like half my body left, right? And so for about 6 months, I found myself on my bathroom floor. I'm up here in my office, and the blue tile is over there, and in the bathroom, and I was on that floor daily, if not multiple times daily, crying and sobbing and just asking God, just open up the floor and swallow me. Like, I just wanted to be swallowed by the floor and just be done. But I had a daughter. And so every day I would say, get back up. And that literally was my mantra for 6 months. And so through that journey, I learned a lot, and I dove into some mentoring and coaching with an awesome, awesome gentleman from California that I really feel like saved my life. And I discovered through that process that this does not have to define me. My life doesn't stop here. My life actually is so much better now, which if you would have asked me that in the beginning, actually Dr. Bradley saw me in the beginning of the throes, and I'm much different than I was then. So with work, with focus on yourself, if you've gone through a bad breakup, if you're in separation, if you have went through divorce, I work with women that tell me, I'm 10 years out from my divorce and I'm still not over it. And it breaks my heart because I'm 2 years out from when my ex left. And I am like light years, like my life is like rock star level right now. But it didn't come by time. Time does not heal all wounds. And it didn't come by being a victim. So if you're interested in working with me, I'm going to tell you a couple things. This program is for people that are like, I want more. I know there's more, and they're willing to do the work. If you're not willing to do the work and you're lukewarm about changes, it won't work for you.
I think that's really interesting. I think that's where you and I'm keeping notes on what you're saying, by the way.
Yeah.
Um, uh, I, I think that that's one thing that you and I really connect on. We share, first of all, we share clients. I mean, you work with Epic. So, our clients intimately as well. And I
Yeah.
think one of the biggest things that we struggle with just in general, and this is out of love and kindness for everybody. This is not a judgment statement
Oh
or
yeah.
anything. But those people that do the work get results, and those people that don't do the work, I mean, they're not, nothing happens, And then
Yeah.
the problem that we have, of course, is that then when people don't do the work, sometimes it's just an observation. Um, there's kind of a disconnect between, well, I didn't do the work, but somehow I'm supposed to get results. And I think it's true in health, it's true in life, it's true in relationships, it's true in money. It's probably true in everything, right? I mean, I don't think there's anything. I guess they always say the best things in life are free. I mean, that's like this cliche, but I don't know anything that's free. I mean, then people always come back with like, well, what about love? And I'm like, have you ever been in love? Love is an amazing amount of energy investment that you put into it. I mean,
Yeah.
I would not call that a free exchange at all. So
No.
hey, I want to say one of the things. Let's go to Get.Back.Up. Let's just rewind just a little bit.
Yeah.
Your Facebook group, what is it called?
So currently right now it's called Freedom, Happiness, and Power.
Okay.
And then it has, so if you just type that in, you'll get to it. There's a little bit more. It says post-divorce warriors. Now let me explain why I put the post-divorce warriors on there. I did not put that on there. I want to be really clear. Get ready. It's not the warrior that's beating up their ex. Okay, my group is not about that. And if that's where you want to go, my group is not for you either. My group is to take our focus off of the ex. Any blame, it goes out the window. Like, we're not doing blame game. We're not a victim in my group. The warrior is actually that. Like, if you're a warrior, and I think you actually use warrior in your
Health warrior. Yep.
yeah.
Same idea.
Yeah, and it's fighting for your best life.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I put warrior in there.
Absolutely.
So that's what it is currently. And like I said, I'm tweaking some marketing, so little changes, but you'll find it.
Yeah, no, that's great. So yeah, so it's
Freedom.
freedom, happiness, and power. Did I get
Yeah,
that right? Awesome.
that'll find me, and it's got a picture of me on there.
Awesome. I'll put a link when I upload this. I'll put the link in so that people can click on it.
Okay.
And then I guess if that URL changes, I mean, then we'll figure it out, But we'll update for sure. The other thing that I think is interesting. This is just an observation again. And again, for those of you that were here before we started recording, you already heard me say this. But Tiffany and I have not at all discussed what we're going to discuss today. So this is a free for all. So I'm learning right along with you guys, which is great. Tiff and I have known each other forever, like I said, shared a lot of memories together. And that said, I'm going to say this, knowing you as a human being, and knowing you through a lot of states in your life, you look amazing. You're radiant. And if you went back, like you said, just a few years through, I mean, like I said, I was there with you when this was all kind of stirring up. I mean, before it and during it and after it and the whole thing. I mean, you look so great. And I mean, your health is shining through, your happiness is shining through. I creep on you on Facebook as much as I can. And you're in a fulfilling relationship. And I mean, there's just so much going on in your life, which reminds me of two things. I'm going to throw two things at you.
Okay.
You kind of mentioned them, and you can tackle them both at the same time or separate them.
Okay.
Number one, I was reminded of some lyrics. You know that I love lyrics, by Mason Jennings, who I also love, singer-songwriter, folksy guy,
Okay.
who said, where would we be right now if all our dreams had come true? And I think it's an interesting, I know it's a deep one, right? Because we always think about, oh, this person is my dream come true, or and the reality is, sometimes, in my opinion, sometimes those dreams are settling, right? I mean, there could be something even bigger beyond that dream, but sometimes we reach what we think is the best and just stop, and we stop growing. I'm going to have you think on that for a minute.
Yeah.
I know that's a heavy concept. I know that you have it. The other thing is that I've watched with you over the course of the millennia that we've known each other, and definitely the last few years, is I've seen you. This is a hard thing. I'm going to try to put this into words. Redefine yourself. What I mean by that, though, is I think a lot of us, and I'll share mine later, but I think a lot of us attempt to define ourselves by extrinsic things. It could be our jobs. It could be that we're a mom or a dad. It could be in our relationships, right? It could be, with what we do. But what I've really seen you really grab a hold of is
Yeah.
this idea of self-definition. And I'd love for you to chat about that. So I'm going to throw dreams, if our dreams come true and complacency, and I'm going to throw back to you self-definition. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. You're such a deep thinker.
Okay. So number one about, if all my dreams come true. Great question to ask me because as Dr. Bradley does know, I desperately wanted to save my marriage. I did not want my marriage to end. And I was absolutely, you can still hear it a little bit in here. I was heartbroken. And I did every single thing I could think of to try to save it. And I feel good about that. Okay. Here's the flip side to that. Now that I've done all of this work and I finally love me. Like for the first time in my life, I actually love me. And we hear this like, oh, you got to love yourself. It's true. Like all the things that we think about, like, gratitude and love yourself and all these things that sound like this airy fairy stuff, they're golden. Like you start practicing them and it's like, oh, okay, this really does matter. So for the first time, I actually love myself. And my life is really, 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 really good. I mean, really good. Um, if I hadn't went through this experience, I wouldn't be where I am. I would not have grown. Like I have grown in 2 years more than I have in 48. And it's awesome. And, that's coming from a woman who desperately wanted to keep her family together. And it didn't work out that way. So when it didn't work out that way, I got to. I didn't have to. I say I got to because there was a choice, right? I could have stayed like on that floor crying every day. And it was like, I'm 40. At the time I was 46 when it happened, It's like, I, I don't have time to waste. I've got a kid to raise and there's a lot for me to do. So it was like, I had to dig deep and it was not easy. This work is not easy. It's simple, but it is not easy. Okay. So there's that on the dreams come true. I think that's clear, right? Does that make sense, Dr. Bradley?
I think I was just talking this morning. I was just mentioning about Adeline, our older daughter, 19-year-old. I know that, and she works at Epic too. I think I think I'm going to just take everybody that I know and love and just have them work with Epic. It's my dream team, right? But Adeline was on. She read something this morning about somebody that had been tested positive for COVID-19, and she lost her sense of taste and smell, but not for peanut butter and chocolate. And she was so happy that she could still eat peanut butter and chocolate. And thank God, because she has her period and this whole thing. And so Adeline was like, don't people understand that they have to eat well, especially during a crisis, like this is the time to dig in and take care of yourself. And I said out loud, I was like, when I was 19, like she is so much ahead of the game at 19 years old.
Yeah.
I had a dream that I wanted, wait for it, I don't share this often, that I was going to be a poet and teach poetry at a writer's workshop. Now, here's the sticky part of that. I don't write good poetry. So, I think that, but I was hell-bent on being a poet. Like, I was doing writing competitions. I was taking poetry classes. It was like a forced effort because I had this idea that that's the life that I wanted to, like live in Paris or New York and smoke cigarettes and drink coffee and hang out with all the brooding, writers and artists. And, that was going to be my, and that would be my dream come true, And I just think like how, I know that's silly, but like how amazingly different dreams are and they change through time. And I think that those of us, this is my interpretation, those of us that see dreams more as maybe a goal, but not an end state, like it would be nice if this happened. I'm open to a journey and I'm open to a different outcome.
Yeah.
But I'm willing to do the work along the way, and my work will lead me to where I need to be. I think that that's the beauty of that malleability, that flexibility, that you really probably, some people get it without a devastating, heartbreaking, heart-wrenching, divorce, or another life catastrophe. But I think sometimes it takes a wake-up call, and whether that's from God or the universe or, spontaneous, shitstorm or whatever you want to call it. I mean, it
Yeah.
does push a lot of us through into something that's even greater that we couldn't have even imagined in that construct of what
Yeah.
that previous dream looked like. So yeah,
Yeah.
I think that like I've seen you grow so much in the last 2 years as well. Uh,
Yeah.
and I think your growth then, just to kind of let you know from my end, has you've said things and done things recently that have pushed me, I wouldn't say outside of my comfort zone, but have made me kind of re-examine language, I mean, there's just things. And I think so
Okay.
your growth pushes more growth. And then hopefully I'm growing and then I'm pushing other people. And
Yeah.
and it's just like this ripple effect of like, I don't know,
Yeah.
where does that dream end? Where does the dream begin?
Yeah.
It's just one continuous thing, but no, it's
I
cool.
want to I want to add just a teeny bit more to
Sure.
this, so it goes with this. So like having that traumatic divorce, what it did was it forced me to look in the mirror, and then I started peeling off layers, right? Like an onion. And I would get to the layer and I was like, oh shit, that's rotten. That layer is rotten. It's got to go, right? And layers and layers. And okay, that layer is okay. I'll keep that one, And it allowed me to figure out what works and what really did not work, right? So get ready, comparing that divorce, and it was traumatic, to our current state of affairs, coronavirus. I know it sounds nuts, but globally, everybody has a giant mirror right now, right? Everybody gets to look in that mirror and peel back some layers.
Hmm.
And it's forcing us to do that as a society. That is the only thing I like about the situation, right? I wish it was April Fool's joke today too, but
Right.
let's take it as, look in the mirror, all
Right.
of us. And it's scary at first when you look in that mirror, but the other side is awesome.
It really is, and I think, I'm a big fan of Russell Brand, and I don't know if you follow his
A little bit.
rantings a little bit, but he had a really interesting video the other day. I almost reposted it, but he's a little much for some people sometimes, right?
Yeah.
And he talked all about, he's privileged and has a different perspective of COVID than other people, and he wanted to acknowledge that. But he said that, which I thought was interesting because we don't hear a lot of people talking about that. But the thing that he said was, he's like, this is an opportunity for humans to step back and reevaluate themselves, and like you said, peel back those layers and get to that root core of who are we, like who are we as individuals. And he
Yeah.
said, I think that if a lot of people looked in that mirror deep enough and really thought about that deeply enough, that he said, I think that you'd have more people saying, I'm not going to go back to that job that sucked. I complained about that job all day long, every day. I hated it. I lived for the weekends. I was destroying my spirit. I was destroying my energy, my marriage, my family, myself, my health. I mean, all of that for a paycheck. And I have to be able to figure this out. And there's got to be a better way to do this. And he said, I bet that if you ask the majority of people on the planet, unfortunately, you know, that he would say that the majority of people just complain about their job, right? Whatever
Yeah.
this job is. Say, could you imagine a state where all around the world people just said, screw it, I'm not going back, I'm just going to figure it out, I'm going to do something different now.
Yeah.
And he said, this is an opportunity for humans to say, we can recreate an economy, we can recreate humanity, we can recreate ourselves into anything that we want right now. It's a blank slate. But then he ended in pure Russell Brand format where he said, but ultimately 3 weeks after the national emergency is lifted, we'll all be scrambling so desperately to get back to those jobs that we hate so much, to recreate the normalcy that we all wanted to go away in the first place. And I think that, it's really pessimistic. And I want to believe, I want to believe, I want to believe, but I think that he probably nailed something there too,
Yeah.
and I think that that's that whole idea of that dream coming true. Like, we do tend to cling to things that may not be the healthiest, because even though we know it's not healthy, could be a marriage, right? Could be a job. It could be unhealthy practices. I mean, there's any number of things here, but ultimately that known is less scary than the unknown.
Yeah.
And I think that ultimately, again, and you guys hear me talk about this all the time, is that we make decisions, hopefully out of love, but if we're not making out of love, we're making them out of fear. And the fear of the unknown is a huge driver to just keep doing the same destructive things over and over and over again.
Yeah.
Anyway, I didn't mean to co-opt that, but no, I think it's interesting.
Great.
So
And
let's
what's number two? Or do
well,
you
I
want,
was going to say, yeah, let's we've already kind of started it, but like
what was
uh,
the question
the
again?
question was, what defines the self, right? Because we tend to define it by extrinsic things like jobs, being a parent, being a spouse, being a partner. I mean, whatever that is. So you've stripped away these layers. I mean, you've gotten down. I don't know if we can ever get to the core self, right? But I mean, I know that you and I have done some real deep soul searching on
Yeah.
some issues, right? Uh,
Yeah.
tell me what is the self? What did you learn about Tiffany? Like, who is Tiffany?
Okay. So I need to add a little background to that. Okay.
Sure.
So I had a number of traumatic things happen. The divorce was like the big whammy in a short period of time. So the first one was that I got rheumatoid arthritis, okay, years ago, when I was 31 was my initial diagnosis. Um, and then what happened after that was I ended up I was a ballet teacher. I taught classical ballet. I had a wonderful studio. My whole identity was that. Like that was my first love, okay? But I ended up with a foot injury and I had a surgery that changed my foot forever. And I tried to take, ballet classes shortly after, and I was really depressed because I lost that identity, okay, through that surgery. So that was the next whammy, right? And then I had hypothyroidism, which in Western medicine, I was told that welcome to your mid 40s menopause. The symptoms, I thought I was bipolar. This all sounds very familiar to Dr. Bradley, right? And was losing my mind. Every day I was like, I'm going crazy. Something's terribly wrong. Okay. And I could go much deeper, but I'm not going to. Then on top of that, I had a incident happen where I lost 80% of the bone in the front. And you can't tell, thank God, but I have to wear some false teeth. Traumatic, like, altered the way that I look. And so, but again, thank God for good prosthetics. Um, so then finally, the final blow was my divorce. And this happened very short time period, okay? And the divorce happened when I was still healing from the thyroid issue. And I was working with Dr. Bradley, thank God, through those issues. And now I'm golden. So having said all that, lots of loss there, right? Lots of different identities stripped away, right? Because at one point I couldn't even be a mom. I was so depressed and so feeling manic from the thyroid issue, I couldn't even be a good mom. So I had lost my ballet, I had lost my health, my ability to be a mother, my ability to be a wife because I was a maniac. And it was just a hot mess over and over again. So yeah, when Dr. Bradley says that I peeled off all those layers, like when I found myself lying on the bathroom floor, stripped, financially gutted, I mean, how I was going to pay my house payment, how was I going to get food in like that amount of time. I wasn't working because I was still recovering from being sick and it was just a nightmare. So when you are stripped of everything, you start to question, who am I? What is the self, right? Now for me, what I have found for me is I had this urge that I wanted to help and serve others. For me, that is myself, right? Because I was a taker. I didn't really realize it, but I had been a taker through life. And I think a lot of us are, and we don't really realize. And when I finally realized that, oh, I have so much to offer people. I have been to every burning bush. I haven't been to just the burning bush. I've been to all of the burning bushes. So I've gathered up all of that information through my trials and tribulations. And my goal is to help others. When you're like that and you're in that situation, you are desperately looking for, I was a rope to drop down that I could just pull myself up off the floor. And if I can just help one person, and I know you can relate, Dr. B, because you've had major health issues and a lot in your life. And I haven't found anything more rewarding than to be of service.
Absolutely. It reminds me of many years ago before I was ever prepared. I mean, not that I'm prepared now, by the way. I am, an infant on the road to enlightenment for sure. Um,
Me
but
too.
but many years ago, before I even knew the road existed, I met this gentleman named Matt Lohman. And Matt's a good friend of mine now, and I recommend that people follow him. He's a very faith-based person and very much about kind of digging into what we're talking about right now. Oddly enough, his job is helping companies set up HR. Like it's a very, I don't know, boring type of job. But I mean, as a human being, this guy is like golden. You know what I mean? And so I was chatting with him one day, and we were talking about purpose. And he basically asked me some question, like, what is anybody's purpose on the planet? What's your purpose on the planet? And I probably responded something like, well, I'm passionate about being a doctor. I want to, my purpose is to be a good dad. I mean, all these, things, right? And
Yeah.
he said, well, what if you can't do that anymore? What if he was like flat out, like I just barely do this guy, right? And he was like, what if your kids died? You can never have any more kids and you can't be a dad. You can't define yourself as that anymore.
Yeah.
What if you, lose your license? What if you lose the ability to practice? What if you, what if you lose all of that? Who are you? What's your purpose? And I was literally like dumbfounded by it. Like that can't happen, because I really reeled for a very long time. I mean, like a long time about this, like trying to come up with a purpose statement that made sense with losing everything, and kind of going there. And I had been there in different ways. Like Tiff mentioned, I've dug myself out of the pit of health. I've been through a very rough divorce. And I will say that my divorce was actually one of the better ones. I mean, as far as things go out there, I mean, we're still friends, we still, all that stuff, but I mean, it was still tragic, so to speak. It's a loss of something. It's a loss of some identity. And there's like grieving period and all that. But anyway, finally, I don't even know how long it took me, but sometime later, I called Matt up and I'm like, I got it. I said, my purpose on this, so I have this purpose statement. My purpose on this planet is to help make the world happier, healthier, and better place in all my actions and interactions. And I was like, I can do that. That's not, and I don't know if that's quite right, but I think it does define me a little bit better than I'm an autoimmune doctor, or I'm a thyroid doctor, and I'm a dad, and
Yeah.
I play golf twice a year, and I mean, it's like, I'm teasing about that, by the way. We don't even play twice a year, although I love golf. But it's tough when you really strip it down and you start taking off the masks and peeling it away and getting to that inner core. It's
Yeah.
one of those questions, as you've brought up kind of, passively, a lot of people don't get to necessarily ever in their life. And I think it's one of the most critical questions that we can actually ask ourselves is, who the heck am I? Like, who am I? Not defined by anything out there, but defined from whatever, I'm trying to point at my heart, but whatever is in here, and I think it's a tough question, for sure. So
I think the one thing with that to add is, and from my examples, I'm sure other people can relate, is that, if you would have asked me 9 years ago that question, I would have said, oh, I'm a classical ballet teacher, and that's all I would have come up with probably. And no one knows. Tomorrow, right now, 5 minutes from now, everything can change. Just
right.
like, look at
Just
what
like
we're
it
in.
did, right?
Yeah, it
3 weeks,
did.
think about 3-4 weeks ago, how different our lives are right now. I mean, it's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about, I mean, essentially your, I don't want to say your program. Can I call it a program?
You can call it a program. It's okay.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
might come up with something better later, but for now, that's.
Yeah. Rachel always tells me I sound like a computer. Like, like tell me about the data that you synthesize for people in your program. No, I'm kidding. Tell us about working with you. Like, what does that mean? Like, let's talk about who, I know you defined it a little bit, but let's go back there. Who is your client? And then ultimately with those clients, and I know everybody has unique and individual needs, but ultimately what's the end game? Like, what are we doing?
Okay. So right now, my client is typically 30, maybe 35 to, can be 65 to 70 even. I've got some people in my group that are that age. Okay. And it's primarily, designed for women. If there are any men out there that want to talk to me, I will talk to you. Right now, the group is designed as a woman only group. But I definitely would talk to men, so you could private message me in that case. It's women who have been knocked down really for any reason. It states divorce, but it can be any reason. You're feeling unsatisfied in your life, you're stuck, you know, there's more, there's more, but you just don't know how to get there. And when I said earlier that I've been to every burning bush, I'm not kidding. So there's probably, most situations I can address with that. My program right now is a 90-day program. So you get an hour call with me once a week for that time period. And you also get homework assignments. Okay. So, and it is individually, it's kind of like when clients come to you, Dr. Bradley, you know how you do blood work. And then it's like, okay, this is going on. So it's not like a cookie cutter program. And we discovered that on the initial call. I do a 30-minute breakthrough call to see where you fit in. And then we go from there.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. And I like that the fact, you sent over, by the way, Tiffany and I planned this interview both months and months ago, and also 2 hours before we started. What I mean by that is I asked if, would you like to be on my show sometime? And she said, yeah. And then we had a couple dates set up that didn't work. And then this morning I woke up and I'm like, you know what? I think it's time to have Tiffany on. And I got hold of you like 10:30 or something like that, right? But she sent me this great, little blurb that was about, I want to help women, basically, like you said, that have been knocked down, primarily for divorce, but to really recognize their self-esteem, their self-worth, to help them feel empowered and ultimately, I think, in control of themselves now, and also setting the stage for control for the future. And I think that that's, a pretty noble thing to be doing,
And I would add, if you're thinking about joining the group, and you're not divorced, go ahead, because what happens is my teaching applies to all situations. Okay. So go ahead. I have people in there that, are currently married and, have said to me, I'm not happy. I'm feeling guilty. I don't want to stay, all kinds of things go on. Maybe you are really happy in your marriage. It doesn't matter. You can join, because it's just like what Dr. Bradley said. It's self-esteem, confidence, rebuilding areas, redefining who you are, all of those things.
Yeah. No, I think it's interesting. I don't even know if I can say this. This is the funniest thing. I've said this before, and it always sounds weird when I say it, but I consider myself a feminist, and it's funny to say that, but, obviously I'm madly in love with Rachel. I've got 2 daughters that I'm also madly in love with. And I want them to be empowered, women, and I see, our 19-year-old, first of all, Rachel's Rachel. I think she speaks for herself. She's got herself more together, I think, than any other human being on the planet.
Awesome.
I always think of something novel, and I'll mention it to her, and she's like, I already started that like 2 weeks ago, and this is the way we're going to do it, But I look at our 19-year-old Adeline, and she is just so self-assured, so confident. I can see that she's already a leader in her. It's a smaller sphere of influence, but I already see that empowerment. And then I see our 15-year-old being a 15-year-old, but still, I know she's going to grow into this awesome young woman as well. And I see that, and I'm proud of that. And it makes me sad sometimes. I'll just have like a moment of truth with you. And I know that you've heard this from me, but for our listeners and viewers, I work primarily with women. Overwhelmingly, I'd have to look at the stats, but on any given day, I would say 85-ish% of my clients are female. Usually it's closer to 87, but once in a while it's 83. So I'll say 85 on any given day. And one of the saddest things to me is when a female client of mine, gets fired up to take back her health. Like, I am going to do this. Like, I know. I always talk about I don't like the name of this. I need a better name, so I'm open to help here, guys. But I call it the potential gap. Like, I know that I can do this, but this is where I feel I am right now. And I have all this stuff to get through. It might be health. It might be psychological baggage. It might be, who knows, right? A lot of messes to go through to get there. But if we can help clunk that away, these women that come to us for help know that they can achieve this. They are high achieving people that we work with. These are people with lofty goals and lofty aspirations and want to help people. I work with some of the most beautiful people on this planet. I'm very blessed for that. Mm-hmm. And it saddens me so much. And I'm going to let everybody know, it's more common than not that they are sabotaged by their male counterparts. And fully fully sabotaged. As in, here's a person that's like trying to eat healthy and keep their house, this way, and make all these changes. And the husband will literally go out of their way to bring home the food that is off plan, that's going to make them feel sick. And I used to think it was because the husband was craving the foods themselves, and maybe that's part of it. But I actually think what the husband is craving is the control over the female. I've been doing this for 2 decades now, and I can say almost universally that this isn't true for every husband, and I don't want it to be true for anybody. But I've noticed a pattern that I'm just confident about, that men don't want empowered women in their lives for the most part. And it's probably because they have their own self-esteem issues as well, right? And that can go both ways. I have seen women sabotaging men. I just don't see it as often. And it makes me really sad when I see people trying and working so hard, and just being, blindsided right and left by their partners, the very people on this planet that they've entrusted their lives with, their love, all of that partnership that should be there, that healthy partnership. And I make the joke. It's not a joke. It's sort of a joke. And Tiffany's heard this. We see people go through health transformations, but by God, when we're working with people, we see people go through relationship transformations. We see people go through job transformations. And it's beautiful on one hand. And yet at the other hand, I'm like, boy, if those men could just get on the train, I think it could be a really powerful power couple, and instead what we wind up with is a lot of empowered women and men that just feel left in the dust. And we do our best. We try to get that main support person on board, participating, and et cetera. And I know that you do that too. So let me come back to you. We have women that are either going through divorce, have been through divorce, life circumstances. And I want to come back to something that you said that I think is important. Well, and it doesn't have to be everybody's journey. It was your journey. But for you, it was important that you did everything you could, that you felt that you could do to make it work, And I remember you telling me, I'm going to air this, and it's as private as anything else. I remember you saying that if I didn't do that you would always, it doesn't matter what the life would have looked like, always wondered, shoulda, coulda, woulda, I like you felt compelled to give it all of your effort because you didn't want to look back and say, well, I didn't try. So there's that. And you did, and you dug in, and you did some great things. But you drug that man to, what was it? I'm making it up, Tennessee or something like that.
It was Tennessee.
Yeah. You're like, we're coming back from this weekend workshop. Couples either completely making this work or with a plan to get divorced. And that's what we're doing. I remember you saying that.
So, on a side note, or not a side note, but if there is someone listening and you are still trying to save your marriage, hit me up, because I can tell you about that workshop. Obviously, I'm divorced, but that workshop is worth every penny for all reasons. You learn so much about yourself that you can take into your next relationship. Like layers, it's painful, but it's good painful. Pain needs to be your friend. Try that on.
It's true. I
think some people are squirming on that one.
I know. I post every once in a while, and I don't know that people fully understand it, but I have a saying that I say, I love pain. It's pain that sets me free, and I'm not, listen, I am not a masochist, I'm not, I will avoid physical pain for as much as possible. Right. But it really is that pit of despair, that when you find yourself there, it doesn't even matter what the circumstances are, but when you find, and we've all been there. Unless there is someone with a charmed life that I have not met on this planet, we have all been there in one form or another. And I see that as an opportunity for growth. I see that now. I didn't, it's easy to get in that pity party, right? Like, I'm in the pit of despair. My life is horrible. Nothing's going to get better. I've tried everything, and, keeps failing. So I might as well just accept that this is my life. And that's where a lot of people, unfortunately, stop, right? Because again, probably what that means is the pain that they need to go through. Now, sometimes that pain is setting things down and letting things go, and that's hard, because if it's all that we've identified with for 1 year, a decade, 5 decades, whatever it is, it's a defining moment, right? But when you do it, when you look at that, whatever the obstacles are, and you say, the only way out is through, you know,
Uh,
I mean, when we commit to that, the only way out is through, we come out, like you said, on the other side. I mean, I don't even have the words for it. I mean, I know that you felt it. I feel it.
oh yeah, it's
It's
hard to
try to give me
describe.
words there. Yeah, tell me about it. What words am I trying to say?
Well, oh wow, it's really hard to describe. It's kind of like and I'm not comparing this to any kind of religious thing at all, but it kind of is like being born again, rebirthed. Um
Yeah, that's a
that's
good
the
way to say it.
best description I can come up with because I am I'm still Tiffany. Like I'm still who you knew as a kid, but I'm not Tiffany. So here's the thing with it. I have had like visions and thoughts about what I was talking about when I was lying on the floor crying and sobbing. And I actually see her as a separate being and I have compassion for her. And you guys, I'll tell you, I had this dream just a few weeks ago. It was profound that I was at the beach. And when my ex-husband had left, I had really, really short hair. So I had short hair in my dream. I had short hair, but I'm also me like this, right? And I see me with the short hair, and she talks to me and she says, "It's okay. You can let go. I'm okay now." And I was like, "No, I don't want to let go. I love you." And I was all dramatic in the dream. And she's like, "No, it's really okay. You're free. You can let go now." And she turns, short haired Tiffany turns, walks into the water, the ocean, and I suppose swims away, like, disappears, right? And I woke up from that dream. I had tears in my eyes, and it was the most amazing experience. That's how I would describe it.
That's a great description, and it reminds me a little bit of a book that you recommended to Rachel and I that's been transformative. By is it Mike Bayer? Am I saying it right?
Yeah.
Best self, you only better, right? And
Yeah.
first of all, I love that book. Thank you for that recommendation. But second of all, what I really like, I mean, he has to go through some exercises, and one of the exercises is basically defining your anti-self or your worst self, right? And and it's interesting because I'm also a fan of what's it called? Interfamily interfamily IFS. I can't think of what the S stands for. But it's a psychological counseling tool or
Yeah.
device
I don't,
where we break the self into parts. Interfamily systems. There it is. I couldn't think of
yeah.
it. It's super weird name because it has everything to do with family, and yet it's only about the self. But it breaks the self into parts. And
Okay.
instead of saying things like, I'm depressed, or I'm anxious. It's more like, no, there's a part of me that's depressed, and let's talk about that part, right? And what I like about Bayer's book, again called Best Self, You Only Better. What I like about that book is he's like, let's define that anti-self. Like, what are your like the worst qualities of Jason Bradley? Like, let's put him out there. What does that look like? And then he has you draw a picture of your worst self. And it's just an interesting exercise. And what's really interesting is, after that book, sometimes, Rachel, everybody, nobody's perfect. Don't tell Rachel I said that about myself, but no, sometimes, everybody kind of like we gravitate to our worst selves at times because it's a coping mechanism. It's something that we've learned to accommodate pain, right? To habituate to it, to deal with it in our own ways, not necessarily healthy ways. And what's cool is after that book, Rachel and I can call each other out on it now, where we're like, "Hey, that's your best self talking, or
That's,
your worst self talking."
yeah.
And it's interesting to just have that mechanism, be like, "Oh yeah, you're right. That's not the way I feel necessarily. That's just this piece of me that's being triggered right now and kind of rising to the top. And there's this whole other part of me that's the bigger self that I can allow to be in control." And I think it's one of those tools that I wish everybody had. I mean, there's so many tools like this, but I wanted to thank you for letting me hear that. And what I hear is that Tiffany that swam away, not that it was your worst self, that's not what I mean, but it
Yeah.
was one of those parts that's like, you know what, I'm still here, I'm still part of you, but you know, I'm not going to dominate anymore. The new reborn Tiffany, is going to be, the one in control and empowered. And I love that. I love
Yeah.
that idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
That's cool. So, we're running out of time. We have about, 45 minutes for these. Typically we go over. Today we went over already. So thank you. But I wanted to give you an opportunity if there's anything else that you'd like to share. I want to make sure that before we go there, even the group again, don't tell me, I've got it written down, is Freedom, Happiness, and Power. It may get renamed. That said, is it a free group people could just find and join?
Yeah, they just
Awesome.
asked to join. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Like I said, you don't have to be divorced or going through a divorce. Just join, because we
Cool.
talk about really cool transformational stuff,
That's
basically.
awesome. That's very awesome. Yeah, and we should, if you remind me, we'll make that on our group. We can make it. You can be a part of other groups with other groups, and I can like plug that in our groups too, because I think it's a very important group for people to be in, and especially like I said, I know it's for women. But I mean, and I'm not saying do it for men too. I think everybody should be part of that group, but definitely our females, which are 85% of our clients.
Yeah.
I think it'd be a very good thing for them to join,
Yeah.
and another, private female community for folks to be part of.
Yeah.
Um, I am part of a male group, oddly enough, called Live Strong, which is not at all ran by any athletes or anything like that. I think it's a funny name, and I sort of like it, but it's also sort of a lot of locker room talk. I'm going to let you know. But once in a while, some good things pop out of there. But
Yeah.
the guy that runs that, Dr. Sam Madeira, is a funny guy anyway, and he will he's always certain that there's a female that's posing as a male in the group to find out what we're talking about. And I'm like, you're paranoid, man.
Yeah.
And then who cares anyway, right? I mean,
Yeah.
but anyway,
So
listen.
like I said, I'll work with men. I just have to do
Yeah,
it. They would just have to message me if they're
fine.
going through a divorce or
Yeah.
need transformation. Yeah.
And I think it's been so cool to watch transformation. So I'm gonna have you, anything parting that you'd like to say to our female, I will say to our female listeners or our male listeners, anything at all that you want to say to anyone.
Yeah. I would say love yourself enough to do the work. Whether if it's with me, awesome. I would love to have you. But if there's somebody else that you're looking at, I would not be where I am today if I did not have a mentor. Okay. I would not. And I wish you guys all could have seen my before and after. Like, I mean, Dr. Bradley commented on my appearance. This isn't I did work, not like beauty work to do this. This is like health through what I learned from Dr. Bradley, what I eat, what I put in my body. Like, if I hadn't worked with Dr. Bradley as my health mentor, I would be on all kinds of prescription drugs, antidepressants, all of it. Sometimes we've got to, I'm not going to say sometimes, I'm going to encourage people to think this way. If you don't know how to do something, go to the person who's already done it, right? I didn't know how to fix myself. I found Dr. Bradley, even though he was my friend. We had been separated for years. I didn't know he was doing this awesome thing. Thank God he is. So, because now I can help other people because I have my health. And without your health, you got nothing, right?
It's true.
So those two things, I would say love yourself enough to do the work and peel the layers off. And that's where life gets fun.
I love that. Yeah, I think it's scary,
Oh
but
yeah.
you said, I mean, and I always say, lo, we shall go through the valley of darkness, right? But
Yes.
man, there is light on the other side. There really is, and
Yeah.
there's love, and there's light, and there's self-love and self-care. And I know it sounds like a selfish thing, but I always say, you and me for me, and you for you, and the listeners for themselves
Yeah.
are the most important people in the room all of the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
and and that's a hard concept to come from, you know sacrifice yourself, martyr yourself for others, to wait a minute, no, I'm more important than everybody. And I mean that out, not like we're better, that's not what I mean, but Tiffany nailed it. We have to love ourselves enough to prioritize ourselves and our needs so that we can be the most effective people on this planet, and then be most effective at helping other people. Otherwise we're just a shadow of what we could be. And the
Okay.
people that love us and depend on us deserve us to be
Our
the best that
best.
we can
Yeah.
be.
Yeah.
So I love that. Tip, I loved having you on,
Thank
and
you.
thank you for joining us today.
Yeah.
And guys, thank you all for joining today. We'll be back next week, supposedly at noon. Today was at 12:30, but noon Central Time on Wednesdays. and we'll have another Wellness Wednesday. And, for right now, keep yourself safe, keep yourself healthy, keep yourself strong, feel empowered, and reach out to Tiffany. I love you guys. Have a great rest of the week, and I'll chat with you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye, you guys. Thanks. Bye.